It's beginning to look a lot like Christmas everywhere you go. Hello there and welcome to this entertaining segment of Jamaica Magazine. I'm Adrian Atkinson and I'll be keeping your company for the next half hour. See you on the flip side of the break, so come back. Joining us in studio today on Get the Facts is Celia Barkley, Information Commissioner at the Office of the Information Commissioner. Our discussion, data protection. Watch as she explains more.
Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm Theodore Henry. With advancements in the use of digital technology and the need to gather and store personal information, it has become imperative to enforce a system to protect databases. The Data Protection Act 2020 was crafted by the government to ensure compliance with regulations on the matter. To provide an update on this process is Celia Barkley, Information Commissioner at the Office of the Information Commissioner. Welcome to the program, Ms. Barkley.
Thank you, Mr. Henry.
All right.
Here.
Let's jump right into getting some facts. I need you to give us an overview. Just give us a sense of the Data Protection Act in terms of its significance, and then we can perhaps talk about compliance. But why is this significant? Let's start there.
The Data Protection Act is monumental.
All right.
It is a true mark of progress for Jamaica as a nation.
Right.
We have watched as other countries all over the world have implemented their own legislation to protect the privacy of personal information. We have now come on board following that same trend.
Right.
And we recognize that this is critical for two reasons. One, it allows us to protect our citizens and persons who are visiting with us because it also covers the information of tourists. But additionally, it places us in a position to be able to properly negotiate in terms of investments in the country. Where we are at now, everybody is looking to see how protected their people will be in doing business with your organizations.
Right.
And so in moving towards having its own data protection regime, Jamaica has signaled to the world that we are right there with you. We share this concern and we are taking steps to ensure that our people and your people are protected.
Can we say Jamaica is open for business?
Jamaica is open for business.
I love the sound of that. So tell me, what kind of entities or professionals are required to adhere to these standards?
So essentially the Act seeks to protect personal information that is collected for the purpose of doing business.
Right.
So any individual or corporate entity or even public authorities that are collecting persons' personal data for the purposes of offering a product or offering a service or monitoring the behavior of individuals in any way are considered data controllers and are to be regulated by this Act. And so the Act calls upon them to register with the OIC.
And, most times when people think data protection, they think just about, okay, you are an e-commerce entity, you have people's credit card on file, but your definition seems to go beyond that, once it's people's data.
So the Act covers personal data and it defines it. Personal data is any information by which an individual can be specifically identified.
Okay.
And so it's not just your financial information. It starts from the very basics, your name, your address, your phone number. You're using a computer, it includes your IP address, your TRN, your passport number.
Okay.
But then it also gets to things that are very unique to you. So when you talk about your DNA, your biometrics, or even certain personal characteristics, political affiliations, your association with organizations, whether religious or social, all these things which taken together, somebody can use to know that, okay, this is Mr. Henry. That's covered and protected by this act.
All right, and anyone who gathers either all this data or subsets of this data, this act applies to them.
If you're holding it and processing it for the purposes of offering a good or service or monitoring person's behavior.
Right, right. Oh, okay. Wow. Now, tell me, the act is in effect.
Yes.
So what happens now? What do people need to do now? I'm a data controller.
All right. So we first brought certain sections in effect in 2021. Those were to allow for the setup of the Office of the Information Commissioner as a regulatory authority. As of last Friday, being December 1, 2023, the 2-year transitional period came to an end, and consequent on that, additional sections were brought in which firstly provide for certain rights for data subjects, the persons to whom the information relates.
Yes.
It imposes certain obligations on data controllers, and that includes the obligations to protect the rights of the individuals as well as comply to certain standards.
Okay.
So now that the act is in effect, controllers are required to register with the OIC so that we can have an idea as to who is processing this information, the types of information that they hold, and also to have an idea as to what are the mechanisms in place that will allow them to properly protect the information. In addition to that, data controllers have to put systems in place that will allow them to do certain things. So under this act, the individuals whose information you hold do have a right to know, for example, what information you hold for them, how you are processing it. If it is that you are disclosing this information to anybody else, they have a right to know who you're disclosing this information to.
Right.
And so you, as the controller, as the business or the person, will now need to know, how am I going to provide that information to the person? You have to have your procedures in place to do that. But additionally, because we know what the risks are in terms of you processing people's information, you also have to have systems in place to make sure that in the event that anything happens, if there is a breach or a contravention, if somebody's information is compromised, that not only do you have mechanisms in place to allow you to notify those persons very quickly, but also for you to notify us as the regulator so that we can assist you in dealing with the situation.
Right, recovery processes as well, I would assume.
Right.
Okay, okay. I want to ask you about what happens with those who don't register, but we're going to go to a break right now. So please, don't go anywhere. We're talking about data protection. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get the Facts. We are discussing data protection and the measures being taken by the government to ensure all relevant parties become compliant with the Data Protection Act. The conversation continues with Information Commissioner at the Office of the Information Commissioner, Celia Barclay. Ms. Barclay, we were discussing what happens now that the Act is in effect. Right, and we had spoken about registration. You had given us an excellent breakdown of what needs to be in place with data controllers. We are curious, though, if you don't register, what happens?
Well, firstly, we would like to encourage registration. Registration is going to allow you, first of all, to be on our radar in terms of possible enforcement, but more than that, it allows us to know in terms of who is processing personal data. Right. And so where persons don't register, you have to recognize that this can come to our attention in various ways. So, for example, we are living in a society where citizens are increasingly vigilant. Even prior to this act taking effect, we have had persons call in to say that I'm aware of this particular entity or that particular entity having my information and I have concerns. So it is best if persons come forward and register. If they don't, however, then once we are aware of the business operating, once we're aware of the data processing activities, then of course we will be reaching out to you to ensure that you step forward and come and register with the office.
Understood. I am very curious, does the office provide any sort of support to data processors in terms of best practices or that sort of thing?
So one of our roles as a regulatory authority is to provide guidance in terms of how persons can best comply with the Data Protection Act. So over time, we will be issuing guidance on different topics that will assist persons in knowing what applies to them, how it applies to them, steps that they can take in order to avoid pitfalls in terms of breaches, as well as to ensure best compliance with the different provisions under the legislation.
Happy to hear it. We've been talking about registration a lot, and would you take us through the steps to registration?
All right. So essentially, the registration is broken down as a two-step process.
Right.
Firstly, we ask that persons create an account. Now, just to be clear, the registration will only take place via the office's website.
Right.
So our website has gone live. It's oic.gov.jm, and on that website, persons will see a My OIC portal. On that portal, it allows you to create an account as a data controller. To create the account, you only enter very basic information in terms of name, contact number, email. That will then give you access credentials that will take you to the registration form.
Right.
And in that form, individuals will be able to enter what is called in the Act their registration particulars. This is where now you would be giving us information such as the details of the business. If you have a data protection representative, then you would also have details as to that person. Those controllers that are required to appoint a data protection officer would also provide the officer's details. And then it gets a little bit more complicated in terms of asking you to enter information related specifically to the processing activities and measures that you may have in place to protect it. So it does take some time for the application to be completed, but for that reason, we have developed it to allow for time for completion. So persons don't have to worry about logging on and having to enter all the information and submit it in one go. If it is that you find that there is some information that you don't have readily on hand, then you will have an opportunity to go and put together that information, come back to the application form, enter it before submitting.
Sounds wonderful. We've heard about a phased compliance period of about 6 months. Could you talk to us a bit about that? How should businesses and professionals be operating in this period?
All right. So initially it was contemplated that all the remaining sections of the Act would have been brought into effect on December 1, 2023.
Yeah.
However, in the 2-year transitional period, we recognize that persons have not reached the level of readiness that we would have liked. And so what we have sought to do is arrive at a compromise where we would allow persons a longer opportunity in order to get ready for compliance. And so over the 6 months period, there will be no imposition of penalties.
Right.
We have not brought the offenses into operation for the most part. And so that period will allow data controllers an opportunity now to take steps that they weren't able to complete within the period that was prior to the implementation of the Act.
Right.
Now what we expect is that persons will seize the opportunity. So we recognize, for example, that there was a challenge in terms of organizations being able to identify data protection officers.
Okay.
Over the next 6 months period, what we expect to see is more persons entering the market, because we recognize that there was a shortage of individuals offering that service. There have been various both private and public sector entities that have started offering training programs to train persons in the area of data protection. And so there will be a greater market of persons that businesses and other controllers can look to for assistance in complying with the Act. We'll also, as a regulatory authority, during this period, be disseminating a lot more information as it relates to data protection, providing guidance to clarify some of the areas in the legislation that might not be as clear for the ordinary person to understand.
Right.
Because we do recognize as well that there is a bit of an information gap in relation to the data protection. So we'll be taking steps as well to cure that gap, in addition to more persons being made available to assist.
Okay. So what about the partnership and the engagement with the private and public sector? How has that been going?
That has been very good, and we are looking forward to greater partnerships as we go forward. So over the past 2 years, we have had the opportunity to work with various persons in both private and public sector. The public sector, mainly in terms of operationalizing the office. We have gotten support from several other government entities with our build-out. But as it relates to the private sector, we have, for example, the private sector organization of Jamaica that has joined with us on several events in terms of assisting with the dissemination of information to the public.
Right.
We also have the private practitioners, data privacy specialists that have worked with us in terms of sensitization sessions, assisting in putting on their own sessions, inviting us, or we have sessions and invite them, and they have been there from the very first day and to date in terms of assisting with both disseminating information as well as even going into organizations and providing that direct one-on-one assistance to them in building out their data protection program. So it has been very good, and we continue to encourage that kind of collaborative approach as between us and the private and public sector.
Sounds great, sounds great. We're almost out of time. In fact, we only have a few seconds left. Is there anything you'd like to say to our audience, many of whom, I assure you, are data controllers watching this program?
Embrace the change. Data protection, and certainly the Data Protection Act, is not something to be fearful of. We appreciate that in anything that requires compliance, and particularly where we know that there are certain penalties for non-compliance, there is a bit of anxiety and concern among persons. However, appreciate that this is a tool. It is something that persons can actually use to build trust and confidence even in their own organizations. Your customers are looking to see what you have in place to protect their data, to know who to do business with. So compliance is something that persons should be excited about, and certainly we are here to help, and so are others. Reach out.
That's the word, reach out. We've been talking about data protection, and what a monumental moment this is in Jamaica's history. This has been Get the Facts, and our guest was Information Commissioner at the Office of the Information Commissioner, Celia Barclay. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Theodore Henry. Take good care.
In this next feature, we look at art and craft.
I'm Carl Dennis. I'm the artist for these work that you're looking at behind me. My work is inspired by the stained glass that's in the Catholic or the Anglican Church. The vibes come from it. So what I do is work with my technique, which is a mixed media in my work. That is my signature pieces, and the effect is, you can see, is glowing. I'd like to get the vibes in my work and make them shine.
My name is Akila Africa, and I'm with Black Butterfly. Well, I'm a wire bender. That's one of the techniques that I use. Did you know that wire has a grain? So I like to, when I'm making my rings, I really try to listen to the wire and bend it the way it wants to be bent. So we start with a mandrel, and we get the measurement of the person's finger, and we take our wire and we wrap it just to get the form, and then we can go crazy. Do whatever design, weaving. There's a technique called basket weaving. We can add beads, we can add stones. The possibilities are endless. I just really love jewelry, I love fashion, and I really believe that we express ourselves through what we wear. It's one of our modes of expression.
I am Devon Garcia. I work in wood and paper. My main work is really wood carving, starting from out of school, from a hobby, not having nothing much to do. So the truth is they used to call me like the pretty dots, okay? So I use up my time to doing something that I can do. So I started to draw People like my drawing. When I get work to do, I can't manage it, I just draw the entire classroom, okay? So I always get away with things by using it's my escape to everything. So from out of school, I've been drawing. People like it. One day by accident, I just find a little piece of wood, start my first carving, one screwdriver, sharpen it, turn it into a chisel. And from one screwdriver, I did my first carving. Win numbers award, local award in national exhibition and thing, medal, gold, bronze, certificate, you name it. Last award was being inducted in the Caribbean Hall of Fame. And that's all about it, you know? Never stop working, and years of experience develop my work, because I would encourage people to, anything you can do, don't care how simple, just put everything you have inside of it, master it. After that, now then you're free to experiment at anything else you want.
Having left Mexico several decades ago, it's still one of my favorite spots. And I just was coming in to talk to a young Mexico student, and I bumped into this. It is inspiring. I've seen quite a number of cultural things. I've seen things on Marcus Garvey, my favorite hero, and I've seen some entrepreneurs. I've seen some books, I've seen some authors, and I've seen some local producers of some nice things that we like to cherish. I want to congratulate the persons who are actually displaying their material, because this is where we need to be self-sufficient and do quite a lot of our things ourselves.
Hello, my name is Eden Emmanuel Williams and I am 9 years old. I created 2 books called The Little Girls and the Cave and The Little Girls and the Woods. It's a short series about 3 little girls who go on amazing adventures. It's for ages 4 to 12, well, all ages, but ideally for 4 to 12.
I'm Jenny. I'm 13. The name of my business is Jenny's Resin. What we do is we buy cups and we customize them to your liking. So we can put your name and anything on it. We do many different types of designs for whatever you like at different costs. The machines that we use Cricut Space, and what works with Cricut is vinyl. So right here is vinyl is basically like a piece of sticky paper that can cut out like any shape or word you want, and then you peel off the back and you paste it on this.
All the proof you need that our Jamaicans are beyond talented and resourceful. Across the island, you'll find a number of events or exhibitions offering an avenue for these creators to promote their works. What's happening near you? Get out of your house and go and explore the beautiful and creative works of our Jamaican people. You'd be surprised at what you can find.
We're just a few days away from Christmas, which means shopping, shopping, and more shopping. But with all that shopping in mind, have you thought about a budget? Watch this next feature.
So you've been budgeting all year long, and you may think that Christmas is the time to, cut your dollars a little loose. Hold on, before you think about that, remember that the new year is just a few days away. So rather than having to restructure your finances then, how about you continue budgeting right now? We have some financial experts dropping some nuggets of wisdom about drafting your Christmas budget and stitching up your holiday finances.
Christmas time is the time when we want to have fun and frolic. And so it's a time when we can really get distracted from the fact that we do have reality that comes next year. So that's why budgeting is important, because we want to ensure that whatever we do to make our Christmas fat does not make our New Year frugal. So look back at your budgets, look carefully. how much money do you really have to spend on the Christmas? One of the tips is you can actually put that money in something and call it your Christmas budget. So separate that Christmas budget from all the other accounts. Have your ATM card connected to that particular budget, that particular account. And when you go shopping, remember, you know exactly what your budget is. And let us say that budget is $30,000. If you have budgeted that you're going to spend that $30,000 on 5 persons and you have overspent on one gift, then automatically you'll know that in order to make sure there's money in the account, you've got to cut back on another. If you keep all the money in one place, it's not going to register psychologically that, hey, I've reached my max. So it becomes important to put things in place for yourself so that you can have fun this Christmas. But remember, next year, rather than being totally frugal, can be fun.
Do proper budgets leading up to even this Christmas and determine what your disposable income is. Don't spend outside of your disposable income. Make sure that you put aside money for the necessities like, food that you need to eat. Also, because Christmas is here, it doesn't mean that you don't have the car payment and you don't have the mortgage. And also remember that people normally get paid earlier. So the next paycheck is going to be more than a month away. So ensure that you do that proper budgeting.
If you've spent enough Christmas here in JA or most places really, it's easy to recognize the extravagant spending and skimpy saving habits that crop up during this time of the year. But understanding those trends could very well be the means to achieving your thrifty Christmas experience.
People spend a lot more because of the euphoria of the season. People get caught up and people will just go out there and spend, which is why I said people should budget and stick to the budget, because when you get caught up in the euphoria and the emotions come on of Christmas, you want to, anything you see you'll spend. So you're going to the store and because you're happy, because it's Christmas time, you're going and you just spend anything you see, especially when you have a credit card. If you don't have control over your credit card, leave it at home. Don't carry it with you.
Here's what you're gonna do. You're gonna write down the names of every single individual that you want to give something to. Look at that maximum budget that you have and then divide it out and see, okay, if my maximum budget is $30,000 and I have 30 people on the list, then it would mean $1,000 per person if we divide it equally. So I know that some persons are going to deserve a gift that would be costing more than the $1,000. So now you would now start to say, okay, this person, based on who they are to me, this person needs a $10,000 gift on average. So it leaves me with $20,000 for everybody else. So do it that way. Now, for some persons, you're going to realize, hey, I can't buy a gift.
We can still enjoy Christmas as it was supposed to be, which is really just enjoying it with friends, families. Go to church maybe this year, and you don't have to go out and spend a lot of money on entertainment, on food, and on gifts. Just spend time with friends and family, which is the most important thing.
So I guess the good news is that with a bit of financial planning and some resourcefulness, we can still have a very Merry Christmas while avoiding the financial fatigue of the new year.
And just like that, we're signing out for today, but not to worry. You can rewatch this offering or other content like it by visiting our website, jis.gov.jm. Do join us again tomorrow on this same station as we bring another informative, educational, and entertaining package of Jamaica Magazine. Until then, I'm Adrian Atkinson, thanking you for watching.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.